On Hillary's version of the ad hominism, in other words, the claim that in addition to being, unfit to hold the nuclear codes, he's misogynistic and bigoted. I'm wondering what your view on that is, because, he has said a couple of things that I think, it doesn't take a huge leap of imagination to consider playing to bigotry. Like when he says, we're going to ban all Muslims, as he put it at one point. When he says, these Mexicans coming over, they're rapists, and then he adds, some of them I assume are good people, but for the most part, I would say it's been more about what are called dog whistles, things that are a little less overt than that. I mean, the allegations of his bigotry, even the thing he said about the inner cities are a mess, that was taken as or cast by some as an insult to African Americans. Yeah. So I'm wondering, and then there are these things he retweets. He retweets this thing with a Star of David. I think it's pretty implausible that whoever created that graphic wasn't aware that was a Star of David. I suppose it's conceivable he could retweet it without thinking that. I don't know. But the question is, how much of it do you well, in a way, we get back to Hillary's basket of deplorables remark. I mean, how many of these people do you think are, in one of these senses, deplorable? And how much is, how big a part of Trump's actual strategy and the actual mobilization of support he's enjoyed do you think has to do with things like bigotry and misogyny?
Yeah, I think a lot, though I am loath to leave it at simply bigotry and misogyny. Okay, so suppose I'm one of these good old boys who resents affirmative action. My kid didn't get into Princeton or Brown or whatever it was, and another kid in the high school with less distinguished record got in, and that kid was black. And I voiced that at a PTA meeting or, whatever. And the reaction to me is, you're a racist and you're a bigot. Now, I feel justifiably wronged, and I've been called a bigot by somebody, and that happens a lot. It happens every day. Suppose I side with the cops and not the demonstrators when people are throwing projectiles down from a bridge in Minneapolis, St. Paul, after Philando Castile gets shot dead by a police officer in a suburban town. And the cops, and there's a demonstration, and the interstate is blocked, and they're trying to clear it, and people are throwing bottles and bricks down on them. And I side with the cops. I think law and order is a serious matter. Suppose I was disappointed when President Obama basically sends Al Sharpton around the country as an ambassador of the administration on behalf of racial justice, and I think of Al Sharpton as a charlatan and an ambulance chaser, and I'm offended by that, and I voice that, and I get told to shut up. I'm a bigot. I'm a racist. I'm a racist for and I could go on. Now along comes a guy who says, to hell with political correctness, I take your side on all of those issues. I think affirmative action is problematic. I think Black Lives Matter have their heads up their butts. I'm with the cops, and so on and so forth. I think Obama's done a poor job. Suppose I'm somebody who really wasn't entirely comfortable with an African American being elected president. I know that very idea is repulsive to most of our listeners out there. But believe me, there are people in this world who are not comfortable with a Catholic becoming president, who are not going to be comfortable with a Jew becoming president. They'll get used to it. Who are not comfortable with a black becoming president, they'll get used to it. Is that anti-Catholicism? Yes. Is that anti-Semitism? Yes. And is that racism? Yes. Okay. They should be comfortable with it. But we're not all on the same page here today, Bob. People are in different positions. And I'm one of those persons, suppose I am, who wasn't entirely comfortable. Doesn't mean I couldn't be persuaded, but it just meant I had a little bit of a lump in my chest. I had a little bit of anxiety and concern about that. Now, there's a number of ways you can try to bring me in. Talk to me. Get me to be comfortable with that. Get me to be a part of the team. One of them is not wagging your finger in my face and calling me names and lecturing me and saying that I'm a yahoo. Okay? So yes. Trump has appealed to racism. I don't know that saying we have criminal aliens coming across the border who are preying on our people and I'm going to stop them is a racist statement. I grant you that the particular verbiage that he used certainly could have been deeply offensive to people who were of Mexican background, and he well might have said it more artfully and differently. But I would put a lot more weight on the dog whistle part of it. That is, on the implicit signaling to people in the electorate whom Hillary Clinton might be ready to call deplorable, but whom I would be a little bit slower to call them simply retrograde, simply reprobate, simply dismissible as people who simply didn't get the memo that we're in the 21st century. I think the country is complicated. I think not everybody's okay with this bathroom stuff. People are having a lot of problems, some people, with the bathroom stuff. That is, the transgender, you go here, you go there. It's all happening so very quickly in our time. Not everybody's on the same page at the same time. So, yeah, he's dog whistling at them when he says, I'm standing with the cops. He's basically saying, I'm against those black people who were protesting the cops and so on. Yeah, sure, he's doing it. Nothing to do with that in politics. We dog whistle on the other side, too, in our various ways about the issues that we think will motivate our base. But I also think there's some responsibility that the cultural elites carry for being less than sympathetic. I mean, I listen to Bill Maher. I don't mean to single him out. He's only one of many, but he's prominent. I listen to the way that he talks about people with whom he has political disagreements, who are religious people, for example. I find it to be mildly offensive, okay? I mean, people can be religious. They're not idiots because they're religious. I mean, Maher has, and Dawkins and others have their points, about the, quote, irrationality, close quote, of religious belief. But, we're thousands of years in the making, this civilization that we have. And I just think a little bit of forbearance, a little bit of modesty, a little bit of humility, a little bit of kindness, generosity toward the other people, and so forth and so on, would go a very, very long way. So I'm back to my point that, yeah, in a way, we elites here on the Northeast corridor are reaping a bit of what we've sown with this embrace of Trump, who is indeed using racist and misogynistic symbolism to communicate with some of his supporters.